Call the meeting to order. 1904, first order of business is approval of the agenda. May I have a motion and a second? Any discussion? I just want to check under 14 that we've got an adequate reason. I need to add one thing to that discussion. Let me just bear with me 1 second. That'll actually do fine, so I don't need to add anything there. Okay.
Additions, new business?
Yes, please.
1, Remembrance Day.
Yep.
And 2, Broughton Hall usage. Brief on both of those, Mayor.
Thank you.
Where are those going under?
12, new business. Jim is?
We're not sure. We were just... I haven't heard. We were assuming he was coming.
Oh, okay, I haven't heard. None of you guys heard?
No.
Okay, we have a quorum, so that's fine. Okay, so motions on the table. All in favor? Opposed? That carries. Public participation.
Sure. So, Lisa Turpin, Panorama Road. In reference to the latest e-post sent out by the village regarding the storms, TELUS actually did give us a refund personally for usage. And also, it should be noted that the block watch captains could have been informed in order to get to those seniors that some of us were getting to. And you could have put the clapper board out to get communication out to people who were in the village looking and at the post office. So the block watch captains know the contact information for other people in the village, whether or not they have cell phones, whether or not they have internet, whether or not they have communication. So there are ways of doing it. There's, I think, 40 block watch captains, if that would have those lists of who is in their blocks that need to be checked on. Panorama Road had 4 people that needed to be checked on. So, you know, there are ways of doing it, and I know certain people were out of town and it didn't really impact them, but it did impact quite a lot of people. So there are creative ways of having communication, and there you go.
Thanks. Well, I think as we also said in the e-post, we have asked the CAO to look at procedures to actually contact people when some of the mediums are down. So I think that's in hand.
Sorry. Don't care about quite 2 minutes, but also essential services. When I was going through what was going on, essential services are 911, and they could have had permission to close the highway to put the line back up. They didn't have permission. If somebody was working due diligently through MOT, they could have had earlier permission to get the highway closed for that 10-minute interval to put that immediate connection up and across, rather than waiting until the twilight hours, because it is an essential service. Nobody clued in.
I'll make one comment.
Please.
As far as block watch captains are concerned, RCMP forbids the use of block watch captains for being a call-out service. They're there for a specific purpose, and they're not allowed to veer from it. The information they have is for the block watch only, and it's not to be used for anyone else. We've tried that a number of times, but they won't bend on it.
Okay. Well, I mean, I think we all acknowledge that there were issues, and we need to look into them. For example, who was going to put out the poster board? Thing is, unless staff was to come in, open up the office and get it out, there was no mechanism. Nobody here is authorized. So those are all things that need to be looked at, and we are going to look at them. Okay, so seeing no further public participation, we'll move on to delegations. There being none, we'll move on to approval of the minutes of the meeting of October 4th. I had a few, but I'll let somebody else go first.
Nope, I'm fine.
No? Ron?
I wasn't here.
Oh, that's right. So my first question is for council as a whole. We put some timestamps on, but you know, the timestamps I'm looking at here, the first one is at 25 minutes into the meeting, and the next one's 1 hour. I don't really suggest that anybody's going to listen to 35 minutes worth of audio to find the piece that they want. So unless it's a timestamp every 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 8 minutes or so, it's not really very effective.
First one's 10 minutes.
Yeah, I know, but then I'm looking at this gap here. It's a 35-minute gap between the next two.
Okay.
In fact, that's 15. I mean, even 15. The whole point was not to make somebody have to listen to 15 minutes worth of audio to find the piece they were looking for. I had asked that every time we changed a piece, that the timestamp would be written down. But that is not happening for whatever reason. Don't know, don't care. Do we... I mean, this is of no use to me to find it on the audio. I don't want to listen to 35 minutes worth of stuff. And then, you know, the next time around we have audio at 1 hour, and the next one is 1:04. So that's, you know, that's only 4 minutes.
So are you suggesting that for each major section we get a timestamp, like section
well,
6 or
well,
subsection?
I don't know what the protocol is, because if you look, you know, section 8, for example, starts at 10 minutes in, and halfway through we get timestamps of 25 minutes and 1 hour. That's good.
Hi, I'm really sorry to interrupt. Does anyone have a key?
Yeah.
I left mine at home, and yeah, I just don't want to leave the ladies waiting.
It's either this one with 2 holes in it, or this one with 2 notches.
Thanks. And what time do you guys usually leave?
Oh, midnight.
40 minutes.
Thanks a lot.
Oh, we've got a bet going. 40 minutes.
40 minutes. I'll just drive home and then come back and lock.
Okay, so the question is, do we want to tighten up or drop?
Well, I kind of wonder what the mechanism is to get it to...
Shauna, what is the mechanism to put down the timestamp?
I usually just, well, when I can remember, to be honest, but oftentimes if there's one discussion for a long period of time, it's one discussion. I'm not, like, I kind of do it when I get to a major...
I mean, just write down the time, right? The physical time on the clock.
I watch the time and just, I put it in right as I'm doing it.
Yeah, because that then gives us, you know,
But
you
if
subtract the start
if
time.
we talk for an hour on one item, I'm not sure how you
Yeah,
You break
post
that
that
up.
on there.
Yeah.
we better not talk for an hour on one item.
No. So,
Okay, well, it's something that we'll discuss with Peter, but I just wanted to get a sense of... I'm seeing nods around the table that it's useful, and it certainly would be useful if somebody's actually following through on the recording on YouTube, if anybody ever does. I don't see
Oh, they
stats. Yeah, I mean, I see 20, 30 views, which I presume is not necessarily unique people, but somebody's listening to the thing 20 times. So, okay, we'll talk to Peter about that. Otherwise, I was going to suggest we just resolve to drop it, but I mean, quite frankly, I like it. And I'm trying sometimes to listen to audio, and I give up. I'm not going to listen to 35 minutes.
sounds like a policy.
Yeah. Or a correspondence policy thing, yeah. Okay, and then the other thing I had was action items. We seem to have, Shauna, what's the deal? We seem to have dropped the action items table.
And that was because we have the IRRs now. So when the actions become a resolution now that go on.
Okay, well, I looked at the IRRs and I see several that are not action items. So under 11 correspondence, Community 150, Canada 150, blah, blah, blah. This needs to be brought forward in the section of the agenda, business arising from the minutes. But unless it's flagged, it means we have to go through the minutes just like we used to have to do to flag new stuff, or flag stuff that needs to be discussed. Again, I guess I'm asking, do we want to go back to the action items list, which at least just pulls them out? And when they carry over from several meetings back, then it gets really difficult. Then so I'm carrying 4 meetings worth of minutes here to keep track. It's craziness. So I think we better talk to Peter about that as well to get us an explicit table.
You have a very sticky key, by
Oh.
the way.
Yeah, well,
There you go. Thanks a
it's a
lot.
forgery. Okay, so none of those were actual changes. I just wanted to hear what we thought about the presentation of the minutes. So, is there a motion on the table? Not yet, I think. So, a motion to adopt and a second. Thanks. It's got it. If he moves, you have to second,
Why?
because there's nobody else.
Can't you?
No, in theory, no.
Okay,
Okay, good.
done.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favour? Opposed? No hands. That carries. Okay, business arising. So can I just hear about these two here?
150.
So
Fred, I know you talked to
Yes.
Kate Pratt, so that's good.
Yeah, she's quite enthusiastic about it and thinks it's going to be a big benefit to the events in the village. and we've put in the nomination papers. We've just yet to hear back from them. I think it's the 15th before we'll hear anything back.
Fantastic. Okay, and then we asked staff to come back with a report on the grant amounts listed in the BC Hydro report. Did that happen?
I wasn't at the meeting.
No, no. Did Peter ask you to do it?
No, he didn't, but it got a bit crazy with the presentation.
Okay, so I
I
sort of
think it was-
suspected that.
So I'll just find out and I'll email everyone. It's the, I did glance at it just for my own interest, and it's the grants in lieu that we get, and that is the right amount. We get a grants in lieu from Hydro.
In lieu of what?
In lieu of taxes, in lieu of taxes.
Okay, and then what's this?
That I will find out for you.
Well, I
I
guess
think
they pay
maybe
that to
they-
us
I think
onto
they-
the province.
I think they actually pay it directly to the province. The check we get is similar to this, but I will find out.
Okay, so that makes sense.
Yes, but I
Uh,
will find out in email council.
That explains. So that is not the 1% utility tax.
No, that's what that is, yes. For the grant in lieu.
It's the grant
they
in
pay
lieu,
a
the 1%
percent,
utility
yes,
tax
yes,
that I keep seeing in the
Yes.
thing.
Yes.
Okay.
So we send them the information they need, and then we get the check. They send us a letter saying how much they're gonna pay, which is perfect timing usually for our budget.
Yeah.
So that's one number that's budgeted to the penny in accuracy, and then a few months later we get the check.
Okay, fine.
But I will find out and.
Just check that we're not missing a trick there. I'm sure we're not, but I'd like to actually explicitly.
And then I'll just email council directly rather than waiting for the next meeting, if that's okay.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. Okay, and then arising from the previous minutes, carried over. No, these are not even marked as action items anymore, because I hear you what you say, Shauna, they go into the IRR, but they don't, because I looked at the IRRs and there's nothing new in there. So we'll have to tighten up on that, but that's a topic for another day. Okay, so any other business arising? Unfinished business. Information and resource request reports on page 9.
So I was just going to say about this, Peter had just wanted me, CAO, De Jonc, wanted me to let you know that anything with his name beside it as a CAO, he will update at the next meeting. And this was really because we hadn't done them for a few meetings. The idea was to just familiarize everybody with what was on here, and he does recognize there's some additional requests that you have made that we will put on here for the November 1st meeting. And then we will start putting it on the agenda again every meeting. to review.
Okay, good, thanks. So for that reason, and the reason that the owner of most of these tasks is not here, I move that we table this and bring it up next.
Yes.
That's not to say that there might not be one or two things that I just want to hear about because the proponents are here. That's you two guys. But I guess I did move that. So if somebody would like to second that, let's do that. So all in
Table.
favor of tabling, thanks, and opposed? So that carries. Well, I should have actually, before I carried, just asked from 2 discussion items. The first was topic number 20 for completed resolutions. It says that you briefed us that the PRV, which is to be installed into the ground via grant funding rather than doing a vinyl wrap. You remember we asked if we could put some sort of cosmetic vinyl wrap around that box outside the school.
Yeah.
And you said we're going to replace it. And my understanding at the time was soon.
Well, it's part of the grant funding application.
Oh,
for
this
phase
current
one.
one.
Yeah.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
scratch that. Never mind. All right, got it. Thank you. The rainfall data that gets plugged into the thing. Can we see a graph instead of weekly numbers? Because it's really hard to compare unless you go, because the weekly numbers overwrite the past weekly numbers, so we can't tell what the rainfall's doing.
To be honest with you, Your Worship, I'm not really paying a lot of attention to that graph because we have received the rainfall gauges and we are going to install them. So FlowWorks does allow you to graph and chart.
So it's going to be plugged straight into the website, as well as this water production graph very soon, I imagine.
All of it, yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
the hard work that Sean has been doing for the past 2 years on producing this graph is soon to be automated.
It will be automated for staff. We are working with Up and Up, the web page designers, to put an API
Just a little widget.
that would bring it up in some sort of graph format. We've
Fantastic.
yet to hear back from them.
Okay, good. I just assumed that can be done. Right, that was that. And 26, Pam, this one is yours. Staff provide a final wrap-up reporting on the Community Centre Renewal Project for the 2015 annual report. Reported is done. I can't find it in the annual report.
No, we didn't put it in the annual report. We had done the final summary, but
Oh,
I
is
thought
that
we
what
had
it was?
discussed and felt we weren't sure that was the right place for it.
Well,
Anyway, it wasn't in the annual report.
No, it certainly wasn't.
But,
Okay, so
but
the
we had
request was
involved
to
you
go
in
in
that.
the annual report.
Yeah.
Why? Because it's got to go to the village.
Mhm.
And that's, in theory, what people read. Although, to be honest, I found one or two typos that I didn't even pick up. But as far as I know, council, correct me if I'm wrong, the village still has not received a final accounting on the cost of the hall. Even the last one that you provided for us, Pam, still had some outstandings to do with fire alarms and stuff that was still within the umbrella of the
Right.
refurbishment.
But we had the amount in that total, and then we just subsequently paid for it. So.
Oh, so it was
Yeah.
booked.
Oh, yeah. No, it was booked.
And so that is in council minutes somewhere. If
That
we-
was more than a year ago.
Yeah,
at least
if
a year
minutes were
ago.
searchable, I
Yeah.
could find that
It was
report.
before last year's budget, and then we just showed that those amounts were budgeted, and then it was just the final bit of the fire alarm. I think it was the only outstanding item.
Okay, what do we think? Just leave it where it is? Water under the bridge?
I think it's old news now.
Yeah, it's old news. Okay, that's fine.
Does that rankle you, Carl, or you gonna let it go, or, I mean,
Quite frankly,
the vehicle came and went.
yes, it wasn't a resolution. Oh, in fact, I think it was a resolution. Yes, completed resolutions in the 2015 annual report. Didn't happen. So that was an actual resolution that didn't happen. So that's disappointing. On the other hand, I know we were scrambling to finish the report. It will be far too late to put it in 2016. We're not going to report it separately. How would we even do that? You know.
Why don't we do it in 16? It's old news section, puts it to bed.
Okay.
It's
I mean, the
so
legitimate
far
part of
after
it is we
that.
didn't finish it until 16.
Yeah, but as Pam said, the numbers were booked within close enough.
And we
Within.
did a report on the final cost.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything controversial in that.
Well, controversial
Yeah,
or not,
it's
it
just-
needs to be reported.
It's just a matter of finding a vehicle, and it just,
Yeah.
I mean, you can't talk about your stuff because
No.
it comes out of nowhere. You can't bang it on the bulletin boards because it means nothing, and
Yeah.
what is this, and where's the tie-in to anything?
But we have reported it at a council meeting. I mean, there was the final report.
I
Over
can
a year
assure you
ago.
that that's long non-findable. Unless somebody happened to twig it as it came past them at light speed. They're
No,
not
my
gonna-
point is, it was done and resolved, and I'm not sure, I've been asked a question about it since. That's what I meant. I think it's done. We've reported on it in a council meeting, and I think it would look odd if we suddenly put it in the annual
Yeah.
report. I think it might stir things up again.
No,
say,
sure, yeah.
And also we did, and I apologize, I thought we had discussed it as a team, and obviously we hadn't. That part of the problem was there didn't seem an appropriate place in the annual report for it.
Possibly.
But, I mean,
yeah.
it did get missed, so I apologize.
No, no apologies necessary. Yeah, okay, well, I'll look forward to the day when I can search historical minutes to find that information again, because I can assure you I won't find it in the stack of paper. And we'll go from there. Okay, that's all I had then. And the rest will be tabled for
Carl?
Councillor McLaughlin.
Carl, what's your point on this, thinking flexibly and doing electronics doesn't take a lot of time and effort since we've got the data? Why don't we set it as a piece of financial information in one of the sections?
For the 2016 numbers reported.
I mean, the annual reports are there. I mean, it's kind of a relevant piece.
Very much so.
So, I mean, if
given
we were
the,
to drew a web link to it, and it drew itself to the information that Pam's provided.
reporting it where? In their annual report.
Yeah, well, in
Just
the
saying-
annual report section, where it does annual reports.
Okay, well, we're about a year away from that decision, so, I mean, the
I was
2016...
thinking of the 15 one, we can post it now. I mean, it's a financial piece.
Well, I don't think we can amend the annual report, can we?
No, not amended.
On the webpage,
Do it on the webpage,
Oh, just...
under
Just
the
do another-
financial information.
financial information.
Oh, I see, I'm with you.
I mean, it accomplishes everything we want, it's disclosed.
Yeah. Is it readily accessible as a page on its own?
No, it was several pages. I mean, the report, I'll have to pull the report again and look.
Let's
I
you and
guess-
me talk about it offline
Yeah.
as to what it is and how best to present it. I think I'm getting the sense that council agrees that it should be presented
Well,
readily accessible to the public. Is that am
why
I?
not? Why not? It's the biggest project that had happened in 7 years.
Yeah.
I mean, I would to me, I mean, you can take the let it go, but then somebody is gonna say, what did that thing ever cost us?
Well, I'm
Like,
one of those.
Why would we want an FOI or other requests of staff when we can just
Yeah,
give
point
them
people
the
at a
information?
webpage. Yeah.
We did get it, we have it to present. I guess I'm
Yeah.
just a little unclear because we have presented it as a final report well over a year ago.
Well, just
And I've never had a question on it since, and if we did get an FOI report,
just
we
zero
have
right
it
in.
available. I just would wonder if we published it, then
Right.
people are asking, why suddenly are you publishing this again?
Mm.
I'm happy
And
with
is it the
you
right
and
time to
Carl
remind
taking this
people?
offline and duking it out.
Okay,
Let's just make it on a sort of, you can make the administrative decision after
Okay.
you and I just discuss it.
Okay.
I'm
I will do
happy
that.
now that you correctly point out the report was produced almost a year ago.
Mhm.
It was about this time a year ago,
Mhm.
maybe a little later, sort of November-ish. Okay, fine. Let's leave it at that then, and we'll open up the rest later. While I was reading the IRRs, I came up with 6 new ones. You'll be pleased to know. So.
just 6?
Yeah, only 6. Things are looking good. Okay, so Shauna, on under 7A, we didn't take the recommendation. We instead tabled the report rather than received it. Okay, you got it? Okay, so we're moving on to 8B, Mayor. Nothing new, although I am conscious that I owe Council a written report on the upshot of the UBCM.
A.
So, you're on
Yes,
8A.
I beg your pardon, sorry.
$150.
I see IRR and information report, and I thought it was the same thing. Beg your pardon. Okay, so reverting back to 8A, page 23. Pam, do you want to talk to this
Yes,
one?
council remuneration. So just to refresh the history on this, we adopted a council remuneration bylaw in October 2015, and based on the CPI index, it was a 0.77% increase retroactive to January 1st, 2015. The CPI rates generally don't become available until February, but March of this year seemed a bit too soon to bring forward when, just a few months earlier there'd been a retroactive increase. So I'm bringing forward it now, and based on the CPI index, mayor and council are eligible for a 1.09 remuneration increase, and I've quantified what the increase, it's a minimal increase. So it would be my recommendation to follow what is in the bylaw and implement that on the next pay retroactive to January 2016, and then get us back on track, and in late February, early March of every year, just implement the increase, because then the CPI, the annual CPI rates would be out, so we could do the calculation.
The bylaw makes provision for you to just, the bylaw authorizes you to do that, so.
Yes.
So
it
this
was
is
really,
only an
it's really an
information report.
information report, yes.
And is the bylaw adequate to allow you to do it retroactively? I think so.
Oh, it is, yes, and
Yeah.
we did that last year.
Section 5, I
Yep.
think, says that.
It's effective January 1st. I mean, even when we start doing it in February and March to get us on track, there'll always be a retroactive component, because as of January 1st, we don't know the CPI index for
Yeah,
the prior
yeah,
year
exactly.
yet.
Yeah.
So, and I think it would always just come forward to council as for information purposes. This is what we're doing, and for transparency, so that we are making it public, that there is a salary increase going through.
Very good. Okay, so we'll take the motion as the recommendation that the information report, council remuneration, be received for information purposes. Can I have a second? Any further discussion? All in favour of receipt and opposed? That carries. Thanks, Pam. So now we're going to move on to the mayor's report to report that there is no report. And council.
Same.
Two things. One, I put in to go to the Council of Councils this Saturday. Are we a yes or no, or am I representing us?
I'm going.
Okay, you? Okay.
Unless, oh no, I already got confirmation from Pam Goldsmith-Jones that she can do the tour from 1 to 2. No, I should have forwarded that to you already, I'm sorry. What time does the Council of Council
9 till
ends?
12.
12, yeah, so I may have to
Oh, I
duck out a
think
little
you will,
early.
that's
Yeah,
fine.
yeah, my
Okay.
soccer team is being coached by somebody else.
Okay,
Very
other
worried.
thing too. And the other one, colleagues, is and this is a bit of I'll condense this really quickly. In my view, the town hall went very well in terms of the marketing that's going on by council and the administration, should we do another follow-up article? I'd be happy to write something for this Friday that'd be short, with the viewpoint that Mayor Burr writes a follow-up to the follow-up the following week. Mine would be along the lines of, which was posed by one of the residents, what if it was a no?
Yeah, that does definitely need some fleshing out, doesn't it? Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's either a yes, in which case, thank you, but I think we've done our promotion this week. If you ran another promotion this week in your update piece, fine. Or we could just let it go. I don't know.
Well, no, I need to review the communications plan because I want to stick to the plan.
Okay.
And I think the plan calls for another piece to go out by mail. Is that correct?
No, there's nothing else going out by mail, I don't believe.
But there's definitely a follow-up to the town hall. So I know that Peter's been responding to individual requests as they come in very well, and sort of one vote at a time.
I can draft something that we can put in the can.
Okay, so let's do this then. Let me just check with Peter that that's good. Perhaps you can then work with Pam on sort of the nuts and bolts part, and then just run it by me, all in time for Friday.
Yes, that's saying, my question to my colleagues here, not although there's quorum, but let's go nodding of heads. If the referendum was defeated, paying for infrastructure would be still on our top agenda piece, and there's only two places that could come from.
Yeah. And if if
So
we were
that
to
would
stick
be
to the
yes,
terms, Nye, correct me if I'm wrong, the IMP calls for certain things needing to be fixed on a certain timeline. That's irrespective of the funding availability. So if the IMP calls for $9.2 million in expenditure in the next 5 years, in theory, we have to do that regardless. Some of it can be deferred even further.
All of it can be deferred, but at a risk.
Higher and higher and
liability.
higher risk. Every year the
Absolutely.
risk goes up
Yeah.
of catastrophic failure, so that the
Yeah.
actual damage and danger,
Yeah.
and the subsequent much higher cost to do the replacement once the thing's failed.
Correct, under emergency costs and overtime.
Yeah.
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 I think that was the essence of Tony Greville's comment that was put into the handout about the costs of sort of pay it later versus pay it now.
Yeah.
With a higher cost, plus the added cost of an emergency, as you're talking about, is always a lot more expensive than preemptive.
It's very hard to quantify the cost of risk, obviously.
Yeah, and it's not just municipal risk, it's residential.
Yeah,
Private
yeah, that's
homeowners will have risk as well.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Carl, why don't we leave it at this? Why don't you, I hadn't thought about the communication plan. I apologize to my colleagues. Because we're not going to go off script there. So,
No, well, exactly. We're going to stick with the message.
You know what? I'll draft something, keep it in the can, and
Well, I think the whole point of the town hall was to see what sort of issues came up, and now we need to respond to those. We've done some on a sort of one-off basis. Even those answers really need to be distributed to the wider audience.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
we are working on that.
we have got all the questions, and we're working on putting together the answers for a facts page.
So how will that go up on the website?
Not sure.
Okay.
Not sure.
Well, I think that's what you're suggesting, Ron, is just one more of those responses. I think maybe that can wait till then.
Yeah, that
okay,
question
well,
is on that fact.
Okay,
It
well, I'll
is.
put it in the can then and send it
Yeah.
off to you guys.
Okay.
Yeah, I was going to suggest that as well. Just that's probably the key question, and Therese has been a real help for us, and that's something I'd like to really
Yeah.
put a lot of effort into the answer. And not to say you wouldn't, but Friday
Well,
might be a bit of a rush, and then sort
I
of
mean,
have them
there-
all go out.
Well,
and-
that's my concern. I don't want to
Yeah.
rush it.
I was getting soft dissent from my colleagues here that the view is that we're not going to do nothing if it's a no.
Oh, well,
But the feedback.
according
we
to
had-
the Bible that we're now working towards, we don't have a choice.
we did get
Other
feedback.
than the two opportunities that would, well, three, I guess, if you consider interim borrowing on a 5-year cap repayment, that'd be one. Borrowing internally would be two, and higher tax rates used specifically for infrastructure pieces.
Well, yeah, well, some combination of all
So,
three.
I
yeah.
mean, if you.
Or drawing
if the
depleting
residents thought they
reserves.
were paying, for the sake of argument, whatever Pam's number was for $3 million on a 30-year AM, what a surprise that number would probably be built into your annual taxes starting next year.
Yeah, starting next year. Although, sorry, go on. No,
I-
go on.
Sorry.
No, no.
I think the key message is, and this was supported by one of the audience members, is even almost more simplistic. A no vote means we can't go for the grants. And she specifically said, be very clear about that point. So I think the other details are important too. But if we can't borrow our 1/3, then we can't really apply for the grants. It's almost
In
as
this
simple
round,
as that.
yeah.
In this round. But I'm not saying that's the only message, but I think that's almost the forefront of the message. Very clean
Yeah, I
terms.
mean, that's-
And the feedback we got from the audience member was you should be more vocal about that point.
Yeah, without the availability of fundings guaranteed by the loan authorization bylaw passing, we certainly can't apply on November 23rd for the first round of the water and clean water and wastewater thing. But it also means that we're always going to be leapfrogging
Oh, no, of
future
course.
awards. So
No,
we
of
have to
course.
first raise the money through taxation and actually receive the cash. Is that right? Or have it in our budget that we're going to raise it?
Well, we couldn't tax enough to receive that much money in 1 year.
No, it'd be much smaller
so,
projects,
yeah.
but it'd be
Yeah.
a lot of
Yes.
tax.
No, of course.
Yeah.
But I think
This sort of also begs the question, Pam, that we need an answer from you on sooner rather than later, and that's what's a prudent level of reserve? Because obviously we deplete our reserve down to the bottom prudence level to give us some ability to apply for grants.
yes.
And at 17 dollars, you know, even if we depleted the reserve, what is it right now, 600 and something, round numbers?
Million too.
It's a bit higher, yeah, closer to a million.
Okay, that's a round number, a million. Let's say we depleted, we spent half of that. That's $500,000. Well, you know, that's not an insignificant amount of capex at 17 cents on the dollar.
No, it's not.
So it's
And
not all lost.
That's the irony. You build up your reserves to use in cases like this. So, you know, I can tell you the prudent level of reserves, but we're in the time now where it's prudent to draw down those reserves if need be to take advantage of these grants. So it's kind of a catch-22. That,
Well, I mean, this is your and Ron's discussion is what is sort of exactly that scenario. We've now spent all of our savings because it was a good time to do it, and what should we have left? Is it 200, 700, or whatever? I don't know what the number is.
what you have left and what your plan is to replenish them. That's the key, is
Yeah,
that,
there's that too.
you know, obviously you build reserves for a purpose and then you come to a time when you draw them down, but then you have to have that action plan to build them up again.
Okay, well, I mean, is it something that you actually want to quantify what happens if the referendum fails?
I think,
Because you will then have to scramble because you'll have a week, 10 days, to change the application.
like, I think internally we have to have an action plan. In terms of communication, I think that's where we get
Communication is a
advice.
different thing.
Yeah. You know,
But it sort of begs the question, what is our plan if it fails? Because that means that all of a sudden our 17 cents worth is reserve money. We can't even tax because that's next year.
Well, that's what I'm saying, Carl. I mean, I think that's sort of the nod of the heads here. If it goes, we're not going to do nothing. So we're going to go down to strip some from reserves, probably do short-term 5-year borrowing where we can do it without going to public.
Is that right?
Yeah.
How do we do the 5-year borrowing?
we can,
again?
it's a very small amount that
It's a
you can
small
do.
amount.
About
Like how?
55,000.
Wow.
It's a percentage
Well,
of,
that's
yeah.
a big
it's so
number
much,
when you got
right?
nothing.
No, but
Yeah,
I just
that's
meant it's not gonna,
$150,000 project
right.
Yeah.
in itself.
Yeah.
And the other one would be higher taxation. So but I think I'm getting this, the communication plan's a piece, and also administration's working on
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, you had that in your hopper. Sort of, at least peripherally, I'm thinking that
So-
if we failed, what are we going to apply for 10 days later?
Okay, so you're going to see it, Carl, before it goes. I'm going to guess yes.
Well, I think that it will come to the IC as well. Is that right now? Is that a plan? Well, it's more administrative now. No,
No,
it won't come to the
yeah.
IC. Why would it? Yeah.
Yeah.
No, the projects are known.
But the message would be to the residents that we're not going to do nothing.
Peripheral question: how are we planning to pay the $300,000 culvert and road project next year?
Phase 2.
Oh, that's phase 2 funding, and you
Yeah.
know that's going to be roads and drainage.
Phase 2 funding, phase 2 of the Clean Water and Wastewater Fund.
You know that's going to be eligible. That
Yeah,
project?
it is eligible, yeah. Clean
Okay.
water and wastewater doesn't just refer to treated water, it refers to stormwater as well, and mitigation.
Okay, so that would apply even
Of
if we
pollutants,
were
et
ready,
cetera.
if we had a project
It
shovel-ready
would apply
plan.
right now.
We could
if
apply now.
Yeah, yeah. If we had a shovel-ready plan.
Okay. Okay. Well, there's a lot of budget thinking that we need to be thinking. Like, for example, I mean, I would suggest that we need to seriously consider using reserve funds for getting more shovel-ready plans ready, so that when the time comes, we can make these grant applications. We also have to be very careful not. They need to be smaller rather than larger, so we don't do these big sort of catch-all projects, because they like to be able to be shown to be divvying these things out. So as maybe we even need to say this in the piece, the communications piece, is that we are now, I mean, it's one step more formal than lobbying. We're actually working hand in glove with provincial and federal representatives, specifically our MLA and our MP, on presenting our case. Okay, good, thanks. Does that satisfy you for now, Ron?
Yep.
Okay, good. Committees? I think all committee meetings have either been deferred or not happened yet, so there's nothing new to report since last meeting, right?
Yeah,
The IC has been deferred until next Monday.
The only thing I would ask, if you could fire your agenda request in, that would be great.
Yeah, I don't have anything new. Okay. Let me just quickly check. I was at a committee meeting at Metro today, and something came up but I don't think it's pertinent here. There was one thing. Sorry, this is still under the council thing. Metro tells the Climate Action Committee, the one that I was at today, that all member municipalities reported they were carbon neutral in 2015. Did we? How would we know? We don't track that. Okay, so I think they probably assumed that we did. I did talk to the new director of that department, a fairly senior guy who comes from Vancouver. No, not Maple Ridge, Port Moody. And he says that the highway, we would not be counted for the highway for its carbon emissions. So our carbon reduction efforts, which we will soon be obligated to do, just like the green waste, if you remember, it was optional, and then they set a hard deadline saying that will be the same case for our carbon targets, which they exist today at Metro. We're just not being mandated to adhere to them, but that will change. But it's good to know that we're not being dinged for the highway.
I think it was reported a few years back that the highway represents 80%.
Yeah, it's a significant amount of our total. But okay, so the 20% that's left, what is that, and what are they expecting us to do? You know, we have, because all on a per capita basis, we have very few people for the size of our properties and the amount of carbon that we emit, because we do a lot of combustion-based heating. We'll see.
Do we get credit for all the trees that we have that absorb the carbon?
As long as we don't cut them down. Yeah, that's only sequestration, though. That's not removal. Trees, all vegetation is considered. What is it now? It's not renewable. It's certainly not considered permanent. You know, it takes up carbon dioxide when it grows, and then when it falls down and rots in the forest, it gives up the carbon dioxide again. But it does bank it, which is why deforestation is such an issue. Okay, so let's move on. Otherwise, we're not going to hit the record. Page 27, fire report. Anything anybody wants to talk about there? I was glad to hear that Firefighters Day was a success, raising more money than ever before, and then I was looking to know the number. Do we know, Pam?
We know the money number this year. I will know, but we actually haven't known the number in the past, because that was prior to me doing the banking.
Exactly. That's why I'm asking.
So we just saw a net. So, you know, I trust them. Apparently it is the best year, but I cannot confirm that.
Okay, but so do you know, what is the number?
I don't have the final number
Okay.
this year because we're still waiting. There's still some silent auction items to be paid for. But I've set up separate accounts so I can separate the revenue and the expenses. Before they were just lumped together as a lump sum deposit, so I only ever knew the net amount.
Yeah. That's why we did it.
Yes, and it's working.
And it's working.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, good. Thanks. So anything further on reports?
Yeah, one thing about the fire report I think is really encouraging is they're reporting they've got 3 new homeowners that have just joined. We've had sort of a loss of homeowners in recent times, and now we're actually picking up 3 more. That's a very positive sign.
Yeah, I didn't quite get the sense of the middle point, the third point. There's 3 new homeowners have joined and they're named, and then on the next point there's 3 more homeowners. So is that 6, or is that the same 3?
3, I think it's just
Same 3?
if I
Yeah,
remember
okay.
right.
Well, that is good, and that's very encouraging.
Yeah, because the last point where they're mentioned again, they're undergoing pre-response training.
Yeah.
It's just that group, so they're highlighted that they've joined, and the other point is that they're engaged in training.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that is good, because that provides the continuity that and the potential future officer cadre that we're going to need. Okay. Anything else? So we'll move on to resolutions. There being none, we'll move on to bylaws. There's none, correct? Obviously. And correspondence. Ron, do you want to run us through this on page 27?
Quickly, yes. I think, well, I'm still having the aloha luster on this. I'm trying to be gentler. Council could look at page 29, the two G1 and, G1, which is Foster Family Month. It's our practice for obvious good community things to accept this. So the key point is I encourage you to recognize Foster Family Month wherever possible. And that's the village as a whole, so perhaps the next edition of the Mayor's Desk, you could acknowledge that.
Okay.
And you get what you need out of page 31 and 46.
Yep.
The other two I would single out, not in order, G2 and G4. One is Canada Post Review, and the other one is BC Hydro and Power Authority and Fortis BC. Dare I say these both are somewhat self-serving. One is...
You may dare.
and that I would actually go no response for council on either of those since they're posted in the newspapers.
You okay with that, Fred?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay, fine.
G3, which is the LGMA, it's their annual report, it's noted as received. And that would conclude the external correspondence. The internal ones, which is...
Well, there's also the BC Utilities Commission piece. That is not a council matter. That was addressed to the municipality, so that shouldn't be in here.
Which one is that? I've got
Page
54.
36.
Or page 8, 7 and 8.
Oh,
Is it not on there? On the table of contents?
It is.
It is, yeah. So that is the piece
okay.
that's been going around asking for comments on the two-tier rate, but that was not addressed to council. So we can...
yes, that's an NR, no response.
Yeah, and in future that should not come to council. This is something between, if staff want to advise the village that they should, I responded, for example, I know I got copies from other residents, but I responded as a private individual, not as an official.
For the resident piece, and this is to do with the Broughton Hall naming, and that's former Mayor Broughton's comments and thank yous, which we've been received. The other resident, the Luthys, no response as well, just acknowledging the graciousness and good event that it was. I'm going to skip one for a minute and go to R4 from Resident Lutet, which has to do with the infrastructure, and kudos to the team for putting it forward, and he is supportive. Which brings me back to R3, which is former Councillor Watterson's email to the CAO and her diverse 4-point questions, which have to do with first time I've seen our priority list, and I thought I saw something today which mirrored this. I think, to be fair, the questions are broad and diverse, and I recommend that we hand this off to the CAO for the sundry responses when he gets time to do it. A lot of former Councillor Watterson's issues are budget discussion, and so, council, while there are priorities within that group, there's no-goes depending on the priorities of the moment. Specifically cash and priorities. So I think to give her a holistic answer from council is impossible. So my view would be to, and this with concurrence to my colleagues, is that leave this with the CAO for the minor ones, and it becomes part of the CFO to bring this forward during the budget discussion.
Well, I'm fine with that. I had actually written down that I will volunteer to respond if you want me to, but I like that solution better. But somebody must respond to Helen, and that's going to be Peter.
It's Peter, who appears, I think I saw something today when I was printing stuff out.
Okay, good. I have a sort of a broader question, and that is, how does that response then make it into the package?
I think we talked about that last.
Yeah, we did, and I never really actually understood the answer, to be honest.
Well, it seems kind of funny to have a one-sided conversation if it's gonna go in the public record.
Exactly, and then next month you have to know to go and check back the previous month to find out what the ask was to
Yeah.
correspond to the answer. So we're still not there. I need to talk to Peter about this. I mean, what I would suggest perhaps is that the correspondence gets sent to the person who's going to respond to it, whoever it's addressed to. So if it's to council, it's to mayor, who may or may not respond or assign it to somebody, and that response is then part of the correspondence, so that it's done and dusted there and then.
Right.
If we're going to do this seriously, as you know, in terms of engagement and all that stuff on those two posters up there, because otherwise, I mean, who's going to go and check between one meeting and the next for the response and the question and all that stuff? So that's all very well, perhaps, for a method going forward, but for these ones, I guess we're going to have somebody, whoever responds, to remember to put it into the minutes. I mean, into the agenda.
So Pam, that would be you.
Acting CAO Rook, I think you mean.
Yes.
When, under that scenario then, yeah, I would just flag it, so when this was answered, and I can see this actually being answered piecemeal, so I could talk to Peter about it. Maybe the overreaching response, we could say, and as part of that, we could say, you know,
You will
this-
see future developments in the future.
yeah,
But
in the budget.
I mean, I think
is
this
year
letter
over year.
needs a response.
Yes. So I
Maybe
see-
not fully detailed, saying
Yeah.
that this is all taken under advisement and thank you, but that's up to Peter.
Yeah.
But the response to this letter, and actually I believe that we need to respond to the other residents who took the trouble to write in and say, good job. But then that response needs to go. So I will handle the one from Myron, just to say thank you, and we'll use that as a trial balloon as to how to get it into the agenda, so that official correspondence, because it's addressed to council.
Well, if you copy it to reception, it's gonna come back.
Yeah, actually, this was never addressed to council. It went straight to Peter. And yeah, in fact, okay. So, okay,
To Council Lions Bay.
where do you see that?
For Myron's,
Yeah.
right underneath the date. Yeah, to Council Lions Bay,
Mine doesn't say that.
and dear Mayor and Council.
Oh, yeah.
Mine says only Peter.
In the salutation. Mayor and council.
Yeah, but it wasn't actually sent to us.
No. But it shows the
Oh
intent.
no, he's talking about Myron's.
Oh, Myron's. Oh, sorry. We're
Uh-huh.
looking at.
I was thinking, will you
We
get a
didn't
special
clarify the
package?
page number there.
Okay, let's leave it there. I do want to tighten up on this though, so that people get the response they deserve. If they've taken the trouble to write, they can at least get it. And because it goes into the record, the response must go into the record. End of story.
And
Okay.
this will be all part of the, and we have to resolve this quickly, but all part of the communication policy
Exactly.
that we do have on the list of things to accomplish after the referendum.
Believe it when I see it. Okay, that's very good news, in fact. Okay, so moving on. New business, Remembrance Day. Ron.
Thank you. Carl, you had made a request, and I saw an email about a part of the ceremony.
Yeah.
And so that's fine. I'll recirculate that to colleagues. Trudy Luthi has quietly behind the scenes already started working on Remembrance Day. So if there's anybody else who would like something in particular during the ceremony, put their hands up. I'll bring the topic up again one more time before Remembrance Day, so you get one more kick of the cat. Other than that, the budget request is $300.
Okay, so we'll take that as the motion in a second. And any further discussion? Yeah, so I got a note from Trudy today on that she's working through the
Yep.
agenda. So are we to take it that you're working with her on behalf of council? Okay, good, thanks. Okay, so that's always, to my mind, that's sort of the pinnacle of the Lions
Yep.
Bay's, I don't want to call it social touch,
Social calendar.
but it
Yeah.
it is a highlight of the
Big
calendar.
deal. Agreed.
Okay, so seconded motions on the table. Any further discussion? All in favour of spending $300 and opposed? That carries. Do we have $300?
Take it out of your extra
That's a bit of
$50 right
Municipal
now.
humour there for the
There we go.
recording.
I'll check and get back to you.
There you go. And the second one was the, what did I call, oh, Broughton Hall rental. And this is as much for the counselors and for CFO and acting CAO Rook to respond, so that we all are on the same page should this come out of the woodwork. Long-term residents have recently sold their house, are going to be leaving in another 6 weeks. Another resident's putting forward a large open community event at Broughton Hall, not dissimilar to the Gingers Farewell. So the background here, CFO, CAO, is that for the Gingers, we didn't charge.
We did not. Oh, no, sorry, we did not. We don't waive fees for private
didn't waive
events.
the
We have no
fees.
history of doing
That's as
that.
I recall it, yeah.
Okay, so
Was
that-
there was the resident fee rather than the outsider fee though, was there
Okay,
not?
so then that's that, and so basically I'm acknowledging that, so that, and staff is working with the proponent for the dates, and that, so council's aware of this, and we'll move it back to administration and the proponent for the date.
Yeah.
These are 40-plus year residents.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, we don't have criteria for waiving of fees, and there are no waiving of fees, so,
And I wasn't sure until I came whether we did or didn't.
yeah.
It was quite a.
Yeah, we had the
checklist.
similar discussion, and in the end we said,
Okay,
yeah, what's
so
the precedent?
we're done enough.
Okay, good, thanks. So we'll move on to public questions and comments.
So correspondence, back in my day, we used to do an incoming and an outgoing correspondence. So you could see what the municipal office was sending out, and it came in one binder, incoming correspondence, outgoing correspondence. So you could see everything that the municipal office sent out, and it was logged together, so that might help solve your problem there.
Was that public?
Yeah, it was. And you could come in anytime. We used to have a bookcase that had it on, and anytime you could come in and retrieve it and look at it. It was attached, see item from X agenda 1A, and then the response to one action item, whatever the agenda item 1B, and incoming and outgoing. It's really quite simple. And also, I can't help but note, I actually went down to see Ken Wolder when the storms were in to look at the dock, and I am really kind of remiss. There's a resolution in here from April 25th from Helen Watterson about volunteer recognition, and this municipal office always used to send volunteers a letter after they had commended service. Ken Wolder, 17 years on the fire department, nothing from this office. I find that sad, a very sad way to treat volunteers. My husband, 15 years, nothing from this Village of Lions Bay office. We always used to send something from Ann Page or Lori Pilon or Bernice Van Selt. So I would really like to bring that resolution a little more forward, because these volunteers put a lot of effort in, and we get a significant tax benefit, and the least we can do is send a letterhead with a thank you as a community. It's worth the 71 cents postage just to send them something on letterhead. Thank you.
I remember this discussion coming up, Fred, correct me if I'm wrong, the fire chief instructed us not to send the letter. Is that, when I say us, I mean,
I believe you're right. I can't remember the exact discussion, quite frankly.
It was
Yeah.
so late after the fact of the retirement.
no, it was on the day that it was announced. I asked
Oh,
if it needed to be, a letter needed to be sent.
I know the day my husband retired and Ken.
Hmm.
So.
Yeah, so I mean, that was not lost on us, and there was an explicit discussion around it, and I believe it was done according to the fire chief's recommendation. Is that right?
That's my understanding.
Yeah,
yes.
that's what I recall. That's not to say that I don't agree with Lisa. I think
Village
official
office
recognition
should send something out.
should be there. But okay, well, we'll look for recommendation on that one.
If your binder says that the village office doesn't do it without a resolution, but we always used to do it. It was just a thank you for anybody that volunteered.
Okay, well, I think we are remiss, to be honest. So we'll tighten up on that one as well. When we get word of volunteer retirements or you know extraordinary efforts, it may be that we have to do a resolution to recognise, much as we do resolutions to recognise, you know, World Whale Day or whatever it is. Why not? Okay. Thanks. Anybody else? Deirdre? Okay, so we're now moving to section 14 of the agenda, that the meeting be closed to the public on the basis of matters to be considered under the following sections of the Community Charter, 91, E and I. Can I have a motion?
Sure, those, you know the two topics I'm gonna talk about.
Yeah.
One's personnel, the other one's a particular property.
Yes?
Are those both covered?
Well, it's too late to change the agenda now, unless you want to make a motion to amend after.
Okay.
Personnel is not, I believe that is D, is that correct?
So I didn't even think to bring that with me, because I
C,
didn't
okay.
realize it'd be on TV.
So if you'd like to move that we add C, I believe that needs to be unanimous.
Labor relations.
Okay, fine, so
Thank
labor
you.
relations C.
Thank you.
Okay, fine. So, meeting's now closed. Oh, did we take a vote?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Okay, we're returning from closed session at 8:42 and reporting out that matters were discussed pertaining to the basis for closing the meeting, which is sections E and I of 90.1 of the Community Charter, acquisition, disposition or expropriation of land or improvements, if council considers that disclosure could reasonably be expected to harm the interests of the municipality, and the receipt of advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose. So that's the reporting out session. I'll take a motion to adjourn. Second. All in favour? Opposed? That carries. Meeting adjourned at 8:44ish.